Left, Right, Out. And I don't think I've talked about, we were doing movie reviews, so I don't think I've talked about the Biden speech, which has gone all, you know, I'm glad I was been meaning to talk about it earlier, but everybody made good observations. The observations I was going to make, the fact that it kind of looked like a V for Vendetta set. That's what that whole thing looked like to me. I mean, some people have used the Empire and Star Wars, but the V for Vendetta seems to be fitting considering all the stuff that we've gone through the last few years, and the red, ambiance. If you haven't seen that movie, watch it. It's one of those movies that Sean Hannity really hated when it came out, but it was ahead of its time and a warning. And it when you watch that movie, V for Vendetta, it comes at it from more of a traditional liberal perspective, where liberals used to, be champions of freedom of expression and free speech and challenging ideas and whatnot. And then the authoritarian fascist area, or the Yahtzee-esque area there, was these guys that contrived a conspiracy and was able to, basically upend their, the English parliamentary system and put into their fascistic government, and it oppresses people, controls speech. You can actually see in that film how a totalitarian regime kind of controls the media, how they have certain people on their payroll that are pushed up as media ideologues, or people that they pay. You know what I mean? I don't know why my mind goes blank whenever I'm on this thing. But anyway, so it's a good movie. I thought so back in the day, and then it's ever more prescient today. Anyway, so the Biden thing, plus I think he used the term democracy. I lost count when I was, watching that, which that's a bugaboo of mine because we're supposed to be a republic. A democracy is the surest form of tyranny because it's, allowing 51% of the people to impose their will on the other 49%, essentially. And sweeping ideas come across, and that's how you get, to where we're at almost, is when you allow people to vote based on, especially when they're paid off by the government themselves. So there's always that saying, once you can vote yourself pay raises from the treasury, I mean, you're pretty much, it's over. So that's essentially what democracy is. A republic, there's democratic elements in it, but there's a set of principles there. That's what we are, we're supposed to be a republic. So I think he used that term once. And on our side, I mean, people that tend to agree with my point of view, they tend to use that terminology wrong as well, using democracy, which we're not. We're 50 states of democratic experiments, but as an overall thing, even the states are set up as republics in a sense. So, it's just, more of the same, in my opinion. It's just becoming more blatant. And to think that somebody set that setup that Biden was speaking at, somebody it's not like they just willy-nilly do this, or maybe they do now, I don't know. But typically there's people that actually set this up and okay, this is good. I'm going to sign off on this. This looks good. To think that there's people that actually thought this would look okay, that's what kind of baffles me, is nobody's checking this thing. Hey, this might look bad. Let's turn the colors green or something, or how about a rainbow color? I'd go with that, LGBTQ or whatever, plus XYZ. But this was very ominous. What was that? There was some other stuff that was going on that I wanted to bring up just real quick. Oh, the Omicron stuff. So I don't know if we're allowed to talk about this stuff anymore, but if you follow me, I in the past, and I was just doing it anyway, I was just alluding to certain things like, hey, this is not effective. And listening to the FDA, reading the studies and whatnot, the old vaccine, or I don't even know if I could say that. The old stuff, the original version, which is still being produced, or not, maybe not produced, but being given, it's essentially ineffective. And I think I've explained that before, is because the sweet and sour jab, or whatever we want to call it, the mRNA version codes for, a certain area of the virus, And that area, it is the one that's prone to mutation. So when that mutates enough, then it's essentially ineffective. If not, there's studies that have shown that it's, maybe detrimental in certain regards. But anyway, I've said that for a while, since this thing mutates all the time. It's like, hey, if you're banking on one antigenic area on this thing and that mutates, you're done. But yet they're still pushing you to do that. Now, the only one that's been shown, and this was in the FDA panel when they were going through this typical discussion, updating the viruses, the only one that had still an area that resembled the prevailing area that codes our spike protein was Novavax. And they just had one little area. They showed it on their charts, that their original vaccine still had this one area where it still produced functional or effective antibodies. And I mean, this antigenic area is also presented to other immune cells that might attack it. But anyway, that's regardless. So the Novavax hasn't been pushed. You see, it seems to be like almost a governmental pushback on that one. It's taken them forever to get it through. They only bought so many millions. They've don't talk about it that much, but it is the one that's based on old technology, and it doesn't utilize. So you're not the vaccine. That's a vaccine. Not saying that it's the most effective thing in the world, because we're dealing with the coronaviruses are notorious for being able to mutate and derive little characteristics to get around traditional immunity. But if you're going to get one, that seems to be the one to get. And I got one dose of it when it came out, because I have to, because what I'm getting into, they like kind of force you to do it. So it's like, well, I was waiting for this one, and I actually got it. But as opposed to where you are the vaccine producing body, where you're putting in information for your body to produce, it just adds another layer of complexity. And that doesn't mean, that just, when you're looking at from the terms of like a military characteristic, it's like, I want the simplest plan possible. Usually simple is good and effective, because one, you have less things that can go wrong, and the greater ability of you at least achieve, the end goal. So if you're adding the complexity of having your body reproduce this stuff to produce the vaccine, one, you're also getting rid of those cells that are producing it, because now they are viewed by the immune system as a invader, because they're presenting this foreign body as part of them, because they're making it. And two, you might have coding errors, and there's various other things. Now we're seeing stuff in various studies that this stuff can also reverse transcript it. I believe it's transcript. It's been a while since I've had the bot, and become part. I mean, it's crazy. I don't even want to get into that, but it's just one layer more of complexity. So if you can get the traditional vaccine, if you have to get one, that's what I would do. But anyway, the point being on that, I just went down that rabbit hole, is that they've somehow approved the updated version of the mRNA version for Omicron and whatever. I think it's a covalent, meaning they still have the wild type, the old stuff. It's like, well, why do you have the old stuff, and then we're not even seeing that anymore? That's for one. But two, the new stuff, which there's now a new paper, or I don't know if it's been peer reviewed yet, but it's like showing that 56% of the people that got the Omicron didn't even know they had it. It's that weak. But the other side of that thing is they tested this on like 8 mice or something like that, which you'd think ethically, if I was that company, even, I'd be like, well, hey, we've known about this for months now, and we should have had trials with regular people, or gone through the process the right way. And it seems unethical to just do it on 8 mice, for that few of mice even, but in a mice model. I don't even know if they had human, immune systems. This is just what, I've heard so far, and I haven't been able to see those documents, but that's apparently what the FDA, because I listened to the presentations, and I didn't get to sit on all 8 hours or whatever of that one. I got to hear the Novavax presentation and some of the Q&As. But it seems pretty, haphazard to just approve this with such little actual data, because you are presenting a different set of information. So to me, it's like, well, when you change that, granted, I guess the principle is still there, but you are changing components of that strain of information, the mRNA. So to me, it would be just prudent to have a legitimate study on that, or have some kind of trial before just willy-nilly just okaying it, because we don't know exactly how even changing one thing might, you never know. So that's why you take these little steps just to verify, just to make sure things are good. But we're not doing that, and it begs the question, because when Novavax is presenting their stuff, there's a lot of questions. They're making them put certain things, they were very hesitant. Besides the doctors that were on the panel, they loved it, but I mean, it seems like everybody seems very hesitant to bring that to market. I know there's manufacturing things, but there seems like there's other things behind that. And then you have the lawsuit with Moderna suing Pfizer over their patent, which they are, if you look at their stock symbol, Moderna is mRNA. So we'll see how that goes, because that seems, and you have like Fauci and them behind the Moderna one more so than Pfizer. I think Pfizer just has a really good lobbying firm, but Pfizer itself, mind you, they are one of the most corrupt companies in the world. They've paid some of the biggest payouts, and so never put anything around them. But Moderna has a backing more of certain players within the NIH and all that. So it's going to be interesting to watch that, especially if anything comes out in court documents. But I guess I'm going down that rabbit hole a little too much. We look at the markets. We're looking at certain things happening. We're looking at the front end of the yield curve, really showing us, it seems irrational. I've talked about that before, but what it's telling me is that people are anticipating a recession earlier than typical. And then we have coming up a Fed meeting, which they should probably raise interest rates. We see some other things going on in the world. We'll probably wrap up a Ukraine one, because I have some thoughts on that now, that there's certain thoughts have been portrayed out there. It seems pretty good. But anyway, we're going to look at the markets. We're going to look at those yields. We're going to look at some of the inflows and some other data. Anyway, talk to you later. Peace.